Just hours after a historic ceasefire was announced between Israel and Iran, the silence was shattered. Explosions lit up the night sky, and the world held its breath. What really happened? Who fired first? And is the Middle East headed back into chaos? This isn't just a broken truce, it's a global warning. The ceasefire that collapsed before dawn. In the early hours of June 24, 2025, a fragile peace agreement brokered by the United States took effect, bringing a temporary halt to nearly 2 weeks of intense conflict between Israel and Iran. For a brief moment, it seemed like diplomacy had prevailed. Sirens stopped wailing. Jets returned to base. The world exhaled. But that silence didn't last. Just hours after the ceasefire went into effect, Israel's defense minister, Israel Katz, accused Iran of launching ballistic missiles into Israeli territory, a move that Israel described as a blatant violation of the newly declared truce. Israeli defense systems were quickly activated, intercepting several projectiles over southern regions, including Beersheba and the Negev Desert. Minister Katz condemned the act, stating, "Iran has proven once again it cannot be trusted. The ceasefire was a test of sincerity, and Tehran failed." Following the accusations, he authorized targeted retaliatory airstrikes against Iranian Revolutionary Guard sites and missile infrastructure, claiming the right to self-defense under international law. Iran, on the other hand, issued a conflicting narrative. Officials in Tehran denied violating the ceasefire, suggesting that any continued hostilities were in response to what they described as ongoing Israeli provocations. This sharp disagreement over what happened in the early morning hours has thrown the entire ceasefire into question. Was it ever real? Or just a pause between acts in a larger geopolitical drama? What's clear is that both nations are once again on a collision course, and the window for peace is closing fast. Conflicting narratives. Who violated the truce first? As the world scrambles to understand how a ceasefire unraveled within hours, both Israel and Iran are presenting sharply opposing accounts of what took place. According to Israeli intelligence, the missiles launched after the ceasefire bore the signature of Iranian ballistic technology. Their radar systems detected the launch trajectory originating deep within Iranian territory, not from proxy groups, a move Israel sees as direct aggression. Defense Minister Israel Katz stated that these were not rogue actors or isolated incidents, but state-sanctioned violations of peace. Iran, however, tells a different story. Tehran's foreign ministry quickly denied launching any missiles post-ceasefire, instead accusing Israel of using the truce as cover for covert drone operations near Iranian military installations. Iranian officials claimed that their so-called response was defensive, a reaction to Israeli airspace violations. This war of words isn't just diplomatic theater, it has real implications. If Iran is found to have breached the agreement unprovoked, international pressure could shift dramatically against them. If Israel acted prematurely or exaggerated the threat, it risks losing global credibility at a delicate time. To complicate matters further, independent verification has proven difficult. The ceasefire agreement lacked third-party observers or real-time satellite monitoring by neutral nations. As a result, the truth lies in the murky fog of war, and both sides are seizing control of the narrative. Meanwhile, civilians on both sides are left in limbo, unsure whether peace is around the corner or if they are moments away from another wave of violence. U.S. caught in the middle, diplomatic gamble or strategic failure. The United States, which played a pivotal role in brokering the ceasefire between Israel and Iran, now finds itself in a diplomatic crisis. When the truce was announced, Washington hailed it as a significant step toward de-escalation. But now, with missiles flying and accusations escalating, that ceasefire appears to be crumbling, and U.S. credibility is on the line. White House officials have so far refrained from directly blaming either side. In a carefully worded statement, the U.S. State Department expressed deep concern over the renewed hostilities and called for immediate verification of ceasefire violations. Behind closed doors, however, sources indicate growing frustration in Washington over Iran's alleged breach, especially given the sensitive intelligence provided to both parties just before the agreement. Critics of the administration argued that the ceasefire was rushed, a political move rather than a sustainable strategy. Without enforcement mechanisms, on-the-ground monitors, or agreed-upon timelines for military de-escalation, the truce may have been doomed from the start. At the same time, the U.S. faces a difficult balancing act. defending its ally, Israel, while avoiding a broader regional war that could destabilize oil markets, draw in Gulf states, and distract from ongoing commitments in Ukraine and the Indo-Pacific. Now, U.S. diplomats are in emergency meetings with NATO allies and UN partners, attempting to salvage what's left of the ceasefire and contain a crisis that could spiral out of control. Regional fallout: how neighboring countries are responding. As tensions between Israel and Iran flare once again, the regional response has been swift, cautious, and deeply divided. Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, both of whom had cautiously supported the U.S.-led ceasefire, expressed deep concern over the renewed violence. In Riyadh, the Saudi Foreign Ministry issued a statement calling on all parties to return to the ceasefire agreement and avoid further military escalation that threatens the stability of the region. However, behind closed doors, Gulf nations are reportedly reviewing their air defense readiness. Several regional airports temporarily suspended flights, and oil facilities along the Persian Gulf have been placed on heightened alert, a clear indication that the threat of wider conflict is real. Meanwhile, Lebanon's Hezbollah, a key Iranian proxy, has praised what it called Iran's courageous response to Israeli provocations, though they have not yet entered the conflict directly. Israeli military officials say they're closely monitoring the Lebanese border for any signs of mobilization. A second front in the north could drastically change the scale of this conflict. In Iraq and Syria, Iranian-backed militias have reportedly gone on high alert. Some sources even claim that rocket systems have been repositioned closer to U.S. bases in the region, raising concerns that American personnel could be caught in the crossfire if hostilities resume. Turkey, acting as a regional power broker, has offered to mediate, but both Israel and Iran have yet to respond. The Turkish foreign minister warned that the situation is on the brink of regional catastrophe if not handled with care. What was once a localized exchange of fire is now casting a long shadow across the entire Middle East. Allies are choosing sides, proxies are preparing for action, and the world is watching nervously to see if this conflict will stop at the border or explode beyond it. What happens next? The fragile road ahead. With missiles fired, trust shattered, and diplomatic channels strained, the ceasefire between Israel and Iran is now hanging by a thread, if not already dead. International observers, from the United Nations to the European Union, are urging both sides to return to dialogue. But on the ground, the mood is shifting. Israel has moved additional Iron Dome batteries into higher risk zones. Iran has elevated its air defense alert level. And across the region, civilians are once again bracing for the worst. For many analysts, this was never just about one missile or one ceasefire. This is a culmination of years of mistrust, shadow warfare, and ideological conflict. From cyber attacks to assassinations. From proxy wars to open confrontation. Iran and Israel have been locked in a long, dangerous game. And now, that game is reaching a critical tipping point. Will this lead to an all-out regional war involving Lebanon, Syria, and the Gulf states? Will the United States be forced to take direct action if its bases come under threat? And perhaps most importantly, is there still a path to peace? The next 48 hours could shape the future of the Middle East for years to come. As the world holds its breath once again, one thing is certain: the cost of failure will be measured not just in politics, but in lives. If this unfolding crisis taught us anything, it's that truth is often the first casualty of war. That's why we break down the facts, not the noise. If you found this insight valuable, don't just scroll away. Subscribe to Decoding History and Science, where we expose the hidden layers behind today. Like, comment, and share this video. The world is watching. Stay informed, stay aware.